the format for the evening is we got a bit of a formal agenda, but then we'll take some questions and we'll have some conversation. So when we get to that portion, it's important that if you wouldn't mind going up to the microphone or raise your hand, and Aaron and I will come around with a microphone just so we can get your question clearly recorded on tape so that when people watch later, they can understand what the question is and what the response was to it. So we do have a bit of a formal agenda. We have a guest speaker with us as well. But I'd like to start off by asking Herb Nabigan to do an opening prayer for us.
Bonjour. Mangis in this nakas mang do dem. Big to go down the bar. Our engagement examine do. Mishomas nokumus. Jabijayak. We doko shank chanamayang. How gain in wingen gid magzamen. I give greetings to the Great Spirit, to the grandmothers and grandfathers. I ask you to be with us this evening. I ask you for guidance and protection. Protect our elders, our parents, our aunties and uncles, and our children, and our community. How miigwech.
We'll do our best to speak up, and if you're not asking a question, we'd ask if we just keep the chatter to a minimum so we can hear. Again, the microphones are for recording for the videotape. They're not necessarily to be broadcast over a speaker here. So we'll do our best to speak out and openly. Want to go through some brief introductions here. With us, we have our elder, Elmer Kershane, who's going to share some of his thoughts with us over dinner. And our counselors who have worked on the project to date. I'll just open by introducing each counselor and give them an opportunity to share some brief thoughts on the Constitution and why it's important to the community. So we've met Herb Nabigan, but Herb, if you want to share your thoughts on the Constitution.
I don't have the Constitution memorized yet, but I'm working on it. I just want to say that the Constitution really is the foundation of everything we do in terms of law. And once we start making our own laws, those laws apply only to our territory. You'll see on your handout, Schedule A is our territory. And that involves the marine life, all the fish and game, and everything in the air. They say we got air rights in the space. I don't know how high it goes, but right now we don't have the airspace, and the planes can fly right low over the village without any consequence. So there's a lot of distractions. But with our Constitution, we can control the airspace, we control the land, the water, and regulate the hunting and fishing for our interests only, not for the interests of MNR or any other government agency, but for our people. And that's really important in terms of taking care of the animals. And if we look after the animals will look after us, they say. And my father was a hunter and a trapper in this area, and I know this part of the land like the back of my hand. I did some hunting and fishing when I was a kid. And finally my dad said to me, Herb, maybe it'd be better for you to get a job, because I wasn't that good at hunting and fishing. So I got a job, and that's what I did for the rest of my life. Amigos, thank you.
Thank you, Herb. We have also another council member who's been on the Constitution portfolio, Art Fisher. Thanks for being here tonight, Art, and if you could share some of your thoughts on the Constitution and opening remarks.
Constitution, to me, is very important because it tells, it gives you a piece of paper that tells you how you're going to run your country or your community or your laws. That's what it means, because right now we've been under the Indian Act, which has under the Canadian Constitution. We're under the Indian Act, and they've been passing a lot of laws to run our lives that's irrelevant to most people sometimes. You know, it doesn't give us any good profits or things to do without it. I mean, like they'll control our education, they control our membership, they say who's a member and who's not a member, those kind of things. And to say that we can't run our own lives is something that I think most of us realize that. As a kid, when I grew up, the people told me, the old elders, I used to listen to them when they talked. And they did, the way they talked, they know what the Constitution, they had their own Constitution, they had their own ways of how they ran the lands about them. And who's like their elections and all that, they ran the do-dames and all that. It was already there written. The only thing is we didn't have it written. And today the whole world, all countries, and little countries, even little countries, have constitutions that tell them how they're going to run their country. But us, it's going to be our community that we're going to be running, and it's a constitution that we do. The reason why we do this too is because, like, if you make bylaws now with the Indian Act, you can't. The court doesn't recognize that. But if you run a constitution and you make laws on that, the courts will recognize your laws and they'll run them. They'll run them through their court systems. And that's another key important thing is having a constitution is that you can make your laws and pass them. And it's going to be done through the people. You know, we do a lot of work right now with to say that the management and the chief and council, they do a lot of work that already says that we're running towards like having a constitution. But the only trouble is when we start enforcing it, it's hard to enforce it in law in the Canadian and provincial systems, because they say you haven't got a constitution to run it, you need laws and all that crap. But anyway, the most important thing I think about a constitution is the people that makes the constitution. You vote for it, you make the laws, you set the precedents and everything we do. And that says, and how we're going to run your people, and how the chief and council, how they're going to run the community. It sets that out also. It says how you're going to run the community. And it also says how you're going to run the lands, resources, and all other things that come underneath that. And another thing about Constitution is you have a thing that says that you can be trialed in international law. If you have a constitution, you could run your laws and run with international law to cover you up on certain things. And another thing I hear a lot of questions about is, are you going to lose what you have already? What is there to lose? We've got more to gain than anything else than to lose, because the Indian Act, we've never gained anything under the Indian Act. We've always lost in that field. So if we run something like that, we got to start smartening up and say, hey, come on, we can do this ourselves. We got to make our own constitution. We got to do our laws. Let's do it and then run it like the way the Anishinaabe is supposed to run their community and their lands. That's what we're all about. It's all about. And to make these laws, we need you people, though, to do it. We can't, like the council can't just pass a law and say this is going to be the law. We can't do that because it's not recognized in any law system. But if we have a constitution, and if it tells us how to run a law, we'll do it, because if your people say you can do the law, and before it's even law, you people have to pass that. You know, everything has to be passed by the control people, and saying then it's a true constitution that reflects the people's views. It can't be council making laws up anymore. It's got to be the people deciding on how we're going to make laws. And if you think you're going to lose any rights or anything like that, you're not going to lose no rights anywhere, because the United Nations has a Charter of Rights that covers a lot of people. So does the Canadian government has a Charter of Rights that protects individual rights. So if we try to do anything like that that infringes on individual rights, these governments will come down on us and let us know that we're not doing this the right way, because to run a good, governance, they want a government that's run by people and done by people, not a dictatorship. So those things will be protected by international law and all that. But I'm going on a little too long, maybe boring you. I'd like to get somebody else to bore you. Yeah, but I'd like to thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Beside Art, we have Aaron Shaw. Aaron's a manager with the Lands and Resources staff and has taken on a lot of the governance activities, and is really integral in getting a lot of the meetings set up, a lot of the print materials you have, coordinating with all of our partners, and really she's able to bring all this together. And so just want to recognize Erin and thank her for all the support and the effort she's put into this. And she's the person, if you want to talk the Constitution, drop by the Lands and Resources office. Erin's door is always open. You can come talk to her at any time with any questions you have. She's fantastic at getting the answers and having the information available. We also have Arnold Michano with us, another one of our councillors that are lead on this portfolio, and we'll ask Arnold to share his opening remarks on the Constitution.
Oh, bonjour. Bonjour, Canary. I've held this portfolio for approximately 6 or 7 years. I've been working on the governance side of it. When I first started this Constitution process, I didn't have a darn clue what the hell I was doing, what I was getting into. Just like some of us that are present now. And as I got more knowledge of what it's all about, I got really interested, and I got really excited once I know what it's all about. And I guess the big question that we all have to ask ourselves: do we still want to stick with the Indian Act? You know, I'm sure if I asked that question to all of you, I think most of you would probably say no. And I think what we're doing now is to develop our own constitutions. And Pick River is one of the First Nations that is developing our constitution, and we're going to ratify it in September the 26th, same time as the election day. And within our region of the Union of Ontario Indians, which is 42 First Nations, and out of those 42 First Nations, I think there's approximately 6 First Nations had ratified their constitution in favor, and they're going to move forward with it. And I guess the big part of this document, it's going to be a very powerful document once we ratify it, once it's achieved. As you heard before from the other two councillors, we're going to be able to make our own laws, our own policies, and there's no other government that's going to stop us, whether it be the province, municipality, the federal government. They cannot stop it once it's ratified. And if you look in the last page of this document, where you got these maps.
Page 5.
It's on page 5. And that's our land claim, and it's a huge territory that we are going we're going to win. I say we're going to win because it always was our land for the past tens, thousands of years. Archaeologists, they have found out that there was people living here way past then, and what they failed to do is recognize that it's a First Nation archaeological stuff that they did find. So it only proves that First Nations were here first. The Anishinaabe were always here. We didn't cross that border from Russia to Alaska, and that's what they claim to tell us all the time. And I guess in closing, it's going to be very exciting when this Constitution is passed. Any leadership that comes after we're gone, they're going to have that power with the people, by the people, to move forward successfully. And the big part of it is we have our natural resources that are out there, whether it be mining, forestry, wind power, solar power, anything you name it, tourism. In our community, once we get that economic development going, we're going to be, I'm sure we're going to be well off, but it's not going to happen overnight. There's a lot of work that we all have to do in these committees. And once we achieve that goal, it may take a while, maybe 5-10 years. Then finally the Indian Act, we'll say the Indian Act, you go to hell, we don't need you anymore. But that's not saying that the feds that are going to give us, they must continue to give us that money that they're giving us right now. But towards the end, with our own source funding, eventually we will not need it. But I guess I'm getting a little too far here, and I'm just going to close off here now and say after Chimigwech. Thank you.
Yeah, everything has been done with that.
Okay, thank you, councillors, for your opening remarks, and look forward to more of the discussion we're going to have. As you can see, so we have with us tonight our guest speaker, Elder Elmer Kershane. Many of you know him, well known in the community. Considers Pick River to be home. I know he does. Elmer's from the Saugeen First Nation. He's fluent in Ojibwe and English. His first educators were his parents until the age of 5, when he was sent to Fort Alexander School, where he received education until grade 8. He traveled, working in several fields as a tradesman, laborer, and general contractor. Traditionally practicing Anishinaabe customs, Elder Kershane is a pipe carrier and sun dancer, and continues to help at traditional ceremonies. He was instrumental during the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood, which was a precursor to the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in the mid-1960s to the mid-1970s. He participated in discussions of the 1969 White Paper, Wabang, Our Tomorrows, that included the movement of Indian control of Indian education, with his home community being the pilot to transfer administrative control from the federal government to the First Nations government. As well, he became advisor to Chief and Council for several years. In 1997, Elder Kershane served as the elder advisor and spiritual giver to the then National Chief, Phil Fontaine, at the Assembly of First Nations. Elder Kershane currently sits as the Manitoba Elder Representative to the AFN Senator Council, and most recently, Elder Kershane has served as the Elder Advisor to the AMC Executive Council of Chiefs and has been appointed to the Truth Reconciliation Commission Council of Elders. It's a great pleasure to have him here in the community with us. He's going to share his thoughts in his travels of where he's seen communities take the active role to asserting their sovereignty, like what we hope the Constitution can bring to us. And for that, we're very grateful to have him. So please help me welcome Elder Kershane.
That's quite an introduction. Can you hear me? You don't know, huh? Ojon no maganitok. Mi gwetchina kijemani to geni ba hey bichit. China chipin on tagusian. Ji kenam ge bigi an. Job mago. Ni janish na bek. First, before I start, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to become part of the family for the last over 40 years that I've lived here. It's been a great experience for me, and it woke up many doors. I didn't know those doors until I left. And when I realized how lucky I was to be among people that were independent. Let me start over. You know me as Elmer Cushane, but in most of my openings, I use another opening. I'm standing strong man. I belong to the Eagle clan. I am not a subject of the crown. I am not a subject of Canada. I'm a subject to the original nations of this land called Turtle Island. I'm sovereign. That's what I believe on. And that's what I stand on. I've opened this format many times before, waiting for a government to challenge me on my opening introduction. But I've never met one yet. For the simple reason, I want them to tell me that I'm a sovereign to their nation. I am not. I'm a sovereign to the Creator. Creator gave me my sovereignty to each and every one of us. When Creator lowered us down here on this land, He gave us sovereignty. He gave us rights and freedom to walk on this land. He gave us trust, that trust of law, that we follow the rules and laws that He has given us. To walk with honesty, to walk with kindness, to walk in humbleness, and to understand what sharing is all about. When we walk and when we do things, from my point of view, I base everything on the 7 values. I gotta trust my thinking. I gotta be able to be honest to where I'm going and to try and understand it. Because nobody else can get that from me but me. And I get that through by listening to the people around me. I've traveled crisscross this country. I've sat in many tables. And I've listened to our people across the land. And when I say our people, I'm referring to original nations, our nations, whether it's Cree or whatever nation is out there. They're all saying the same thing in different ways. And we're all saying the same message. We are the owners of this land. And we have every right to make laws to how we want to govern ourselves. When I said I'm a subject to the nations of this land. That means I respect their laws wherever they come from, the same way that they will respect my laws to where I come from. It's a balance. What being presented here is being presented also as I speak in Saging. Saging started this in 1972 or 73. It went dormant, but it come up again. This week or next week, they will be voting on the process of making laws. This week, they'll be voting for funding that's going to be used to begin everything to start. It's a long process. It's not one thing that you can do in 2 or 3 months. It's going to take years, and it's going to take time. And it's going to take everybody. Everybody has to contribute. Everybody has to give his share of what he sees or wishes before it becomes successful. It cannot be a one-man show. It has to be a family show, a family of growth, a family of understanding. If we cannot accomplish that, and I'll be very blunt with you, because that's how important it is for me. If you cannot follow the family concept of working together on something that's important as this, and you're going to run it as a one-man show, then forget it, because you're going to hurt people. Yes, we have many issues at the table. The table is full of what the government has thrown at us, and they'll keep throwing at us, and we have to be careful. I've been around, and one thing that really worries me right now is the young people. My question to each and every one of us: can we answer and provide the same food table that our ancestors provided for us? Will there be a food table for our little ones? Got to answer that question. Right now, as we speak and as we listen, the government, corporations are looking at our lands, taking the resources, destroying our waters, abusing our air. All of this is happening. Yes, we want to make laws, fine and dandy, and I agree with that. But also at the same time, you got to be aware of what's happening now, what's taking place. How are you going to say to the world, to the governments, hey, you're walking on my land. You speak to me first. You come to my table before you go any further. We have to be bold. Assimilation has done a number on us. I went, and some of us know what assimilation is all about. I spent 10 years in prison. And the prison I'm talking about is the residential school. and how much it took off me. Today I'm fighting for my freedom. But it's not my freedom I'm really fighting for. It's the freedom of my grandchildren. I want them to have something. I want them to know at least Grandpa stood up and spoke for us. At least Grandpa tried to say something, that there's a future for me, that I have a food table. But you know what happens today in our countries? Maybe some of you may not like this. But what happens? A lot of our politicians fall into what I call the 30 pieces of silver. As soon as money is thrown on the table, let's make a deal. Don't work that way no more. We have to get our fair share of the resources. And we have to make sure everything is protected. I sat with nuclear waste for 5 years. When I was there with Jim Sinclair, who passed away, he's an old politician, and a few other elders that are there, Billy Two Rivers and many other prominent elders. We developed a mission statement to try and help the world understand better. And the mission statement is very simple: to protect, to preserve the land, the waters, the air, the animal, the plants, and so forth, and the human being, guided by the 7 principles that the Creator has given us. Think about the 7 principles. Think how powerful they are. Think how directive they are. Think of the responsibility it gives you that you've got to live on. You can write all the Constitution you want, but if you don't understand the 7 principles and its obligation and its responsibility, what good is a Constitution? Think about that, because it's very powerful. And in order to understand those, Creator gave us 4 directions to help us understand them. And every day we carry those 4 directions. What we see, what we hear, what we smell. But the most dangerous one is what we say. We're careful. So everything that you're planning, I agree. But please, don't try and make it happen overnight. Because it will never happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take time. When I first got to work with AFN, with Phil Fontaine, it was in Quebec 2004 when I spoke to the chiefs at that time in Quebec. And I told the chiefs, Creator has opened a door for us to write our own history, the way we want it, the way we should run it, and the way we understand it. Not how they understand it, but how we understand it and how it's going to work for us. Don't worry about the Constitution for now. Don't worry about legislation for now. Don't worry about bureaucracy. Write it the way you want it. Then let's see how you're going to fit, how they're going to fit into what you want. The last assembly that was in Montreal, I was very glad when I heard the former Prime Minister, Paul Martin. I guess he must have done some good when I smudged him up. But anyway, when he spoke to the Assembly, and this is what he said into education, but it relates to everything. Write it the way you want it. Write it the way you see it's going to run. You do it. What is it saying? What is he saying? It's time we take control. It's time we start writing our own laws, our own ways of governing ourselves and looking after this land. Because nobody else is going to look after it. I always hear the voice of the old timers because I've traveled and I've listened to them. And there's one thing they always strove at one another, at one amongst ourselves. If you don't follow Creator's laws, how are you going to answer them when you get on the other side? You think that's funny? But really think about it. It's our responsibility to take care of one another, protect one another, to take care of the land, take care of the waters, take care of all those. It belongs to us. You know, it's going to take time. There's these little books. They're very important to know. It's very important that you read them. Because a lot of it is right there to what you have to do. It's already written. I went out to the lake this afternoon. I went out there to talk to the waters, to the spirits, and ask for their guidance. And I asked them one simple thing. Help me. What am I going to share tonight? I didn't prepare anything when I came here. It all comes from here, from the heart, not from pencil, not from paper, but from the heart. When we listen to our hearts, and we listen to our little ones, and we watch our little ones, you will make the right decision. You will make the right choices. And when I say I'm a subject to the original nations of Turtle Island, there is no boundary. I can walk any place I want. That's my sovereignty. Because I know the other nations respect me where I go, same way that I respect them. That's what family is all about. Everything that you're talking about here, I've heard it across the country. Ask Roy. He used to listen to that. How many years? You know? Now we're here. Whatever is going to start here, I might not see the end. I probably won't see. But at least there's a start. A start of taking and believing who you are. Taking that title of ownership to yourself, to your land, and to all creation. Be careful of the European language. It always carries a double-edged sword. One word can hang you. So be careful. When Dave Gabo asked me on the land claim to do an affidavit of my life here in 40 years, and I finished, when I read it, you'd be amazed what I found and what I seen. I came here 40 years ago, and I didn't know that I was coming to a nation that was sovereign, and still sovereign today. I walked down to the mouth, and I seen a sign over there that says, Pick River, never signed treaty. What does that say? You're sovereign. Right now, we're in a court case. Let's say, for example, you win the court ruling that you've never signed treaty. That makes you automatically, to the eyes of the Western world, that you're sovereign. Finally, they'll understand. But also, to the land. That is your land. Now they'll understand that's your land. Because you never signed it away. You never gave it away. Even in the treaties, land was never given. And that's a story by itself. There's so much that we need to learn. You know, family, you've got young, educated people that are here, are coming up. Help them understand. Educate them of the past so they can defend themselves for the future. And that's why I mean, take your time on doing this. But at the same time, protect what's out there. There's got to be a way that you got to tell the corporations, hey, you sit down with me first before you start doing business. I'll give you an example. A few years back, they signed an accord, hydro accord, in Saging. They came back again, trying another accord for 40 years. And they offered, believe it or not, $38 million chicken feed to operate a license in our area. We sit in Lake Winnipeg, Saging. If we give that license out to hydro, we have opened a door to destruction for ourselves and for other people. That's why we went to a vote on the last accord that was being presented to the people. First, it went traditional, by hand. The council at that time tried another way, referendum. The referendum I'm going to go no again. So it's dead. It's got to come to the people. It's got to be reviewed by the people, agreed by the people. And now, this week or next week, you're asking for approval. The chief and council now are what they call the executive council. Now they are working with the people. They got 4 councils right now because we are a big nation. There's the youth, the women, the men, and the elders. 4 councils. Everything passes through these councils. There's a designate that represents each council, making sure that whatever law is going to be passed in the future, each council will review it, update it, or whatever, or change it, whatsoever, before it comes to the General Assembly. We got a central messenger that puts it all together, and then it goes to the Lawmakers Assembly. The Lawmakers Assembly is the people. The people will vote yes or no. That's how we're looking at it right now. And that's the process that's going to be presented. So it's going to take a lot of time. I'm just cautioning you. Don't think of ourselves. Let me put it this way. Think of your little one. Think of the ones that are not here yet. Are they going to have something? Are they going to be able to go around over there and enjoy the beauty of the land? Or do you think the 30 pieces of silver will also survive for them to live on for the rest of their lives? I'm being a little rough, but I have to be. I have grandchildren here, and I love my grandchildren. I have grandchildren down west. I got relations all over. When I listen to the elders across the table, across the country, they're all saying the same thing. Our little ones are first and foremost. Our grandfathers, our ancestors looked after us. Now it's our turn to look after them and give them the best advice, best directions that we can for them. Because they got to live on. So all I'm saying to you is take your time. Be family. Don't let it be a one-man project. Be a family project. And we'll get there. I'm going to be here for the next couple of days. And somebody was saying I have a place to... I got some papers I brought with me into what way we have everything written out. So I'll be able to share those with you more in a private session than in here. You know, all I'm saying to you, family, please be careful. Life is too important to throw it away for 30 pieces of silver. Silver never grows money, never grows trees. Take care of the waters. because water is oxygen for the trees so that we can breathe, so that the animals can breathe, so that the medicines grow. We'll survive. Our ancestors did, so will we. We're not going away. Remember this, right across the country, look at all the sawmills, mills that were right across this country. Where are they today? They're all closed down right across the country. What did they leave behind? Nothing. They didn't leave any food table. They left destruction. Now it's just for us to correct it. Think of that. If you're going there, make sure that everything is protected. You know, the famous quote corporations say to our people, I'll give you jobs. I will train you. I'll give you this much money. But do they ever say to you, where's my share of that resource you're taking? You're filling your pockets with. He's taking on the resources. On all you got is a few little jobs, maybe a little bit here, this and that. At the end, they leave, and what you have. So it's a lot of thinking, a lot of examination, and watch the news every day. See what's happening. Because the world is moving. The government is moving. Let me put it this way. MacDonald, Prime Minister MacDonald, what did he say? Take the Indian out of the child. What does Stephen Harper say? Take the Indian out of the land. He's selling the land across the ocean. And he's got no right. Think about that. They're trying to assimilate us, get rid of us one way or the other. They're trying every way they can. Bill C-30, 35, I believe, one of them, or 45, you know, where you can't have demonstrations anymore. You cannot have gathering. What does that say? If you do that, you become a terrorist. In other words, all he's saying is that keep those Indians back over there. We don't want them to be disturbing anything. That's what it's all about. So be careful. Listen to what's coming down, so that you're aware of everything that's coming down. Every day there's something on the news. You know, I was asked a question the other day. It's about the blood quantum. You know, that's another way of trying to eliminate us. But my answer to that, I am an Anishinaabe. Wherever associate my grandchildren or granddaughters or whatever they are, who they married, to me, they are still mine. They belong to me, not the government. They got a pint of my blood. They are Anishinaabe. Period. I wouldn't budge away from that. They can try all the laws they want. And I would be bold enough even to challenge him in court. Because you're broken my original right as a human being. When did you get the right to say who I am? Where did you get the right? All of these things. The other thing I want to leave you with as the end. Don't be afraid to question the government. Don't be afraid to challenge them. Because if you don't challenge, it's just like agreeing to everything they're bringing down. It's just like saying, yes, what you are saying to us is true. You got to challenge. You got to make them answer. If you don't, they'll walk all over us, all over the country. With that, I say, miigwech. Ako.
Thank you very much, Elmer, for sharing your insight and experience and words with us. A lot of what our elder has said, I think, is what we need to consider moving forward. What the Constitution is in front of you. Our purpose is not to read through the Constitution tonight. Proddy came up to the table earlier and says the paper's not as important as what the mind has to say, or as Elder Krishna said, what the heart has to say. So what we'd like to do now is have a conversation as a community about any of the questions that might be out there about the Constitution, any clarification on what it is, what it isn't. Our council members will do their best to answer the questions, myself and Aaron included. Some of the things that have come up is, what is this Constitution not? And the Constitution does not take away your individual rights that you have as an Aboriginal person in the country. The Indian status, the commitment of the benefits towards health care, education, the benefits we enjoy as status Indians, those are not to be taken away by the Constitution. The Constitution enhances what we're able to become or what we're able to assert our control over. A little bit about the Constitution. It was drafted and is in front of you as such, and was designed to be the foundation to start having the conversations about the next step of how we assert ownership over the title and the rights that we have in our lands. And so you have a big list on page 3 of this document. It talks about things like fishing, forestry, mining, family matters, property rights, education, health, language, culture. Those are all things that we can start to have a conversation with as a community and say, do we like the existing structure, the existing model that we currently reside under, or are there changes we want to make to that? And if there are changes, we're able to then move forward. But what you have in front of you today is the Constitution that asserts who we are. We are the community members, the Bigtagong Anishinaabe. That's who we are. That's affirming who we are to the world. Secondly, it talks about what does that mean to the rest of the world. We have the right to create our own rights, our right to govern ourselves, not within the Indian Act, as Arnold and Herb have mentioned, and Art. And so this is the foundation for us to start having those conversations. No laws are passed in this document, but what it does is it lays that foundation to say, let's have the conversation. Let's start to talk about some of these things. Let's get the people in to educate us, to provide a template and continue to meet like this and determine what the course of our future is for this community on different matters. One thing that this is not is new. As Elder Kershane alluded to, we've been doing this for many years. We've asserted ownership in our own way through education, through, I heard stories of how the fire department has come about to be what it is today. And you know, at the level that it is, those didn't come from programming from Indian Affairs or funding dollars from Indian Affairs. Those were things that the community said, this is a priority for us, and this is how we'll move forward, and we will become whatever it is we want to become. What this document does is it allows you to start to formalize that process that the rest of the world can recognize and say, okay, this is who these guys really are. But the elder's comments, he's right, we do have to take this slow. And that's why we keep this high level at this point. It has to be slow. We have to think about it, and everybody has to be engaged and offer their opinion on what it is, because it's ultimately your future. And so this ratification process that we're about to embark on September 26th is to vote in favor of what's in front of you, a yes or no. And then that process is duplicated. For anything else we want to have a discussion on, we will have community discussions, dialogue, your input to shape the future or the course of action that we want to take for that next challenge, whether it's enhancing education, healthcare, asserting our sovereignty over the lands and resources we have, telling to outsiders that they can't come in and do what they think they want to do. And we've already taken steps through a community consultation document that outsiders must abide by. And I can tell you, we're inundated with those types of formal requests to engage at the Lands and Resources Department every day from companies that are active in our backyard. And that's because Chief and Council in previous years said, you can't just come here and do what you feel like you want to do. You can't just go through the rules of the Mining Act. You must engage us in the dialogue. You must keep us aware of what projects are going on and what your intent to work is. And then what we try to do is negotiate opportunities for the community, whether it's through jobs or benefits or resources. So that's high level, I think, what the Constitution means to me, and from what I've heard from the council members that have been on this. It's an exciting time. It's a new time. This is something new for us. But now's the time to start to have these conversations and be involved in what's out there. Because at the end of the day, the piece of paper is as good as it's written on. It's, as the elder says, it's going to take everybody to be behind it to assert that control, to assert that authority, to live by what it is that we determine we want to be. And everybody has to believe in it and be behind it. So I open it up if there's questions or comments to the floor, and we can answer and have the conversation.
Bojo, makdem kondego. Kiwense giminek dishna kazin makdem mako. Miigwech. Shaushko gilma ken begin to go. I didn't want to come up right away, but there's so much beautiful things that my crazy elder has said. And I think it's so important. Be careful. Be careful and be careful. And I hear an invitation that we may get some help from that community. I'm an emotional son of a gun, and I don't know if I'm going to get through what I want to say here. In my Ann Lanner's book, Rial once said something of hurting. So Rial traveled with us, my son and a lot of drummers. Went all over the place with Rial. And there was one time that we were going out to Whitefish Bay or somewhere. And out there, you know Joe Belliard, everybody here? Remember him? Well, I'm going over there, he says. He's a Frenchman. I will give the boys a ride on my car, he says, and tell me where to go. So I said, you take Real. And I took a whole bunch of else, and we got stopped by Kenora. Real jumped out of that car. He ran back to us to get something that we have in our car. And the police almost started shooting at him because they were looking for a fugitive. And they thought Real was that fugitive. Joe Villiard says, Real, get the hell back in this goddamn car and you shut up from now on. Oh, you know. But anyways, I talk about Real, and then I got Courtney. I guess that's Real's sister. And talked about June. So I do my little blurb and condolences and all that. And I went for dinner, and I'm sore and hard and heavy, and I'm glad I saw him because he explained certain things. And so I got into the restaurant and I asked what I wanted to eat. And they say there that we serve you with a smile. So I went and paid for my meal. Can you smile? And do you give hugs with this? Because I was hurting inside because I'm feeling so bad for Joan. And I guess the funeral will be here. So I went. I got to go somewhere. And Raymond is over there in the hospital. And I know there's a girl there that is babysitting for. So I went there, and I had to put on a gown, but I didn't want to go in. I called her out. I so much need a hug, but I think you need a hug too. So we hugged hardball there, and it was so nice to comfort her. But I agree that this is important. And I agree the important thing else is for our land claim. So we all understand what that's all about. I personally feel that our managers of our community, and there are some that are here, they got to be given the challenge of understanding this land claim, this Chinaknagiwin. Because we speak of one act, which is the Indian Act. There's 7 acts in the Crown of Canada, and there's as much in the Crown of the province. But I feel they're not going to really agree with this. They're going to challenge us big time. And I chatted with Nipissing First Nation. I says, at some point in time, Arnold says, there's 6 of us now, eh? We have got to get together. Because I don't think we're going to have enough money to go to court and challenge what we want in Chinaknagiwin. And I talked to a few young people. This is what I don't know yet. Seems they're forcing it on us. Well, no, we will. Hopefully, we have 6 Anishinaabe lawyers, you know? And I feel we got to engage those lawyers to come here and educate us old folks and the young people. The young people, it's not. I don't care about me and my son. I don't care about him either. But I got grandson. One of them keeps asking me, "What's that about? Show me." You know, what's that about? He's not going to listen to me. I think our lawyers, we should bring them in here, along with Nawagabo, and go through that whole thing. And yes, we will have to pass it maybe on the day of the election, maybe, but maybe there will be a caution. But I would like to hear from the managers that we have here to give me a real detail in terms of this is okay. Because we said, caution, be careful, be careful, be careful. And I don't want to go down in history and say, and my son wouldn't have to worry, but my grandson says, these council members, did they protect us solidly? You know, Lake Superior, the water, that's our water. Tar sands is coming on a pipeline. You know, they don't want to put it on a train anymore because the train can't stay on the railroad. But tar sands is coming, it's going to screw the devil out of my kids, my grandchildren's history. So that's all I want to say. I wanted to say that before I forgot about it because I'm angry, you know, and I don't like being angry.
Oh, bonjour again. During this process, we've been educating our families. Up to date now, I think we have, how much families did we visit? About 7 families. And out of those 7 families, when we first started, none of them did not have a clue what that document meant. But after we went through it and we explained it to them, they were pretty excited and they were pretty happy. And they gave thumbs up to it. So what we're going to do here now, before September 26th, we want to meet the families that have not had a chance to discuss it with the committee. We will come to your homes and we will inform you what it's all about. And from there, you make your own decision on September 26th. So that's really, really important. We can't, you can't vote on something that's blind. You have to know what it's all about. What did I say after Chimigoch? And I want to thank Elmer for his words. And he's he's my brother-in-law. But thanks, Elmer.
I just had one question that's been running through my mind, and today Arnold mentioned earlier that they've been working on this for 6 years, and he had no idea what it was all about. And yet it seems like you're really pushing for this vote to happen in a month's time. And a lot of people still have questions, a lot of people are confused. And if it took you 6 years to really grasp this, why is it that we only have, like it says, final draft July 16th? Why do we only have a month or two to fully understand it and vote on it? And that's something that I've been wondering about.
Thank you, Ann, for that question. That's a good question. But, it's like I myself and a few of the members have been working on this program for a great deal of time. And but during that time, there was a lot of information that was given from these workshops, passed on to the managers, passed on to the council members, and we did have some sessions that were conducted right here in this hall. We had Gordon Wanamintz from the Union of Ontarians. He came down and he incorporated the culture into this document. So in a sense, I guess I have to say, are we making this, forcing you guys to have this done in 2 months? Not really. It's been there for years. Oh, my gosh.
I get you guys been doing this for 6 to 7 years, but you gotta admit, since over this summer, talking about the Constitution and all that, everyone was just surprised, like what is going on? So the reality of it is, yes, you guys have been working for 6 to 7 years, but at the end of the day, not even half the reserves is still aware of it. It's not until now that everyone's jumping on board. So because of that, should we be voting in a month's time? Should we be I'm nervous, everyone's looking at me. My heart is pounding. But you know what I mean? Yeah, I agree, you guys have probably been working on this for a really long time. But when you look at it from the community sense of people who are not on chief and council, people who don't work for the band, like everyone's just finding out now, you know? So like, is it too early to vote? Should we be making more time to make more people well aware? Because this is a really big thing. There's good things out of it, there's bad things out of it, and we shouldn't rush it. So that's my opinion on the time-wise.
Herb's going to answer your question, and I just want to say that thank you for standing up and saying what you said, but nobody should feel nervous about saying anything. That the tough questions, don't be afraid to ask. Now's the time to have that conversation, and we're a community, and we're a family, and you have to feel comfortable about what it is you're being asked to say. So, you know, kudos for standing up and asking those questions, but we need more of them.
Allez, miigwech. Bonjour, Minois. I just wanted to say that Elmer and I had a conversation before the dinner started, and he asked me how much time you got. Well, for us rookie elders, we only got 5 minutes, but we're going to give you 6 minutes to speak. After 6 minutes, after the speech was over, I said, you took more than 6 minutes, so I'm going to take back some of that time. But it's really important that questions about time and a lack of dialogue we seem to be having at meetings like this. There is a process in place already that we've been working on with the families, and we are very pleased with the results of those discussions we had with the families. We just had a discussion with Aaron's family Friday night at the Lands and Resource Building, talking about this Constitution. It's everybody, I think, is afraid. Is not afraid, but just don't like change. Nobody likes change in their lives. I know I don't like change, never did. But I had some major changes in my life, and I dealt with them as I moved forward. We have in this community, I've only been on council for 2 years, so I've not really worked on Chinaknagewan for 6 or 7 years, but only for 2 years. But the discussions we had with other chiefs from the Union of Ontario Indians all basically had the same question. We need time to absorb this information, and we need time to think about it and to discuss it back in our communities. So that's the message we got when we were in the Sault Ste. Marie with Arnold and Art. The other thing I want to say is that the alternative for this rejection of this Chinaknagewan is going back to the Indian Act. And there's no satisfaction with the Indian Act in my experience. I've been working in different government departments around legislation. They never once consulted our communities about what they saw was important for them. At least in this document, we did come back and we're asking the questions, what's important for you, and what do you need what do you need us to consider before you take the vote? And I don't think the word force, nobody is forcing anybody to do anything here. I think what we're really asking is for your consideration, either yes or no. And then whatever the decision is, we'll live with it, and we'll come back again and again, because I don't want to see my grandchildren continue to live under the Indian Act. I got 3 grandchildren, and if this is rejected and again, what are we leaving for our grandchildren and the little ones, as the elder says? So that's what I'm thinking about. I don't care about me. my life cycle is just about over, you know. I've done most of the things I want to do, and I've done them. But my grandchildren need a chance, and your grandchildren need a chance to grow up as Anishinaabe. Who is Anishinaabe? We're Anishinaabe, and that's our history. We have a relationship to this land. We have a relationship to the water, to the air, and to the animals. And I want to leave a nice trail for our grandchildren that they can be proud of, that trail they can begin to follow. So that's what my message I have for this hall tonight, Talmigach. Hallelujah. Yeah, Elmer Cochet. That's my drunken partner. And there is nothing to be ashamed of. We survived. We had a lot of good times. We worked together. So I'm going to thank him for being such a nice guy. He was a nice guy to me. One of my best friends. And I'm very happy to see all this, what's going on for our reserve. I don't know too much about the paper because I never read it really. But it's always good to have something going on. So our reserve will benefit from it. For our people. Our people need directions. And that's very good to have that direction. The younger people, something to be proud of. Amigos.
So I'm not speaking as a manager, so I'm not speaking as a community member. And, you know, I want to fast forward. I want to take us 25 years into the future. And just imagine Pick River with this Constitution 25 years into the future. And I say 25 years into the future because hopefully whoever's on council right now is not going to be there, so they're not going to be offended by some of the questions that I'm asking. But let's say in 25 years that our council decides for itself that the term of council shall be life. That each council member has the power to sit in that seat and govern this community without election, without votes, without endorsement from the community. Is that possible? So you read this document today, and those laws, this power that we're going to hand council is an extraordinary power. It brings council into each and every home in the community. And, you know, when you develop a constitution and you start talking about the development of nationhood, and we've asserted that in our community with the land claim, with you know, going out on the land, with the youth groups, the hunting camps, the moose camps, the youth camps, we've asserted that this is our territory. But this is something completely extraordinary. Now, each one of you people live in a home on this reserve. Residency is talked about as one of the authorities that council will have. After you've paid for your mortgage, or if you pay rent, who lives in your home? Who has the right to decide who lives in your home? That's your home. That power is handed over to this council in 25 years. When you assert nationhood, constitutions are important because they send the message to the rest of society that this is who we are, this is who our power is, this is what our power is. But the compelling part that I see missing is this expression of individual rights. They say individual rights will not change, but they're not expressed in here. So what are some of those things that are important to us? The right to vote, equality. We should all be treated equal by our government, by the services that we provide. The environment. These are all things that are not spoken to in this document. And it's been a long process, 6 or 7 years. And these are not new comments that I've made to the people that have worked on this document. But even after 6 or 7 years, the expression of individual rights, the recognition by our council of what those rights are, and their commitment to protect our rights as individual citizens is still not in this document. There are lawyers that have written this. There are lawyers that know the Constitution of Canada. There are lawyers that know the history of how those documents were written. But still, that protection is not in here. So, the elders' comments with respect to taking our time, I think is something that we should all listen to. And I feel rushed, regardless of the comments, I feel rushed that we're being told on September the 26th that we have to vote yes or no, because if it's not a document that protects our rights as individual citizens, how can we vote yes? The most important part of a nation is its citizens. And this document doesn't speak to that. So, what do we do? I mean, the development, in Canada, this charter of rights, which is something that that's available to us, that we can see, as individual citizens. Can't we include that in a document that's being tabled to the community for adoption of our nationhood? We're a nation. We're a nation with or without this document. On September the 27th, if people vote no, guess what? That doesn't change who we are. We are still a nation. Be good.
Stating that the fact that we're still going to be a nation, the thing I'm worried about is we're going to be a nation under the Indian Act, which is white people running our lives all the time. And I think when you're talking about elections and referendum, there is a clause there. This is going to be dealt with. We are going to make laws on that. We're not going to just come up and say the chief and council is going to make the law saying this is how the election is going to be held. No, this is about people saying this is how we want our election to be run. And it's there. We have to deal with it as individual people, and all people, like we're doing tonight, have to come up and speak and say, this is how we want this done. This is going to take, I don't know how many years of all the points coming through here. There's some we work on, like as a First Nation that's already being independent, there's a lot of stuff we work on already, but it's not in law or anything. If you're, say, supposing something happens and somebody wants to challenge something, or if we want to deal with an issue, if we take it to court, they don't even recognize our laws or whatever we deal with. They'll have to deal with it through the Indian federal laws or provincial laws, which deals with being an ordinary Canadian citizen, not being a schnabby, and not having any lands that you live on. And then on top of that, you just become an ordinary citizen or community. As far as that goes, we might as well say, let's just be like Marathon. They'd just love to see us to be a city or a municipality. And that's what they're striving to do with us, to get rid of us as First Nation people. But to get started somewhere, we have to start somewhere. And this is a good document to start with. It doesn't say here how we're going to make an election yet. It doesn't say how our residency, our territory is going to be. It doesn't say how we're going to manage the lands and resources. It just says this is what we're going to deal with, and we'll make laws on that. That's what it means. So we got to have a piece of paper like this to say, there's something to start on. If we don't have the Constitution, there's no use talking about how we're going to do these things, because we don't have a Constitution that'll back it up and say, the people said yes, this is how you got to do it. If we don't have that kind of document, and the Constitution is one of those documents that'll tell us, not only as chief and council, but the whole First Nation, the people themselves saying, this is how we want to run our community and our First Nation. So I wouldn't worry about too much of individual rights being lost, because as we're making the laws up, they will be included in that. I'm pretty sure of that. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. I'd say it actually is I've been living for 72 years in this community, and everything I've seen going on, we've progressed quite a bit individually as a First Nation, but still I always feel that something is holding us back, and that's the white men doing their thing on the Indian people. And that's all the bad things. You hear about it all over the place. They'd even like to get rid of us today. You go ask Harper. Has he got any policies on Native people, how he's going to improve them? He's got nothing. Those kind of things we've got to worry about. But if we have a document that says this is how we're going to run our First Nation, I think that's something to start on. And if we're just going to sit back and go on Indian Act, I don't know. I'll still feel pretty tied up behind my back and white men telling me what to do. Whereas if we start working on a First Nation, I'll become more free and feel more free as a First Nation person, that I'm going to be living a good life down the road. Thank you very much.
I'm not very good at talking, but how are we supposed to get our younger generations to believe in exactly what we are doing here? As I look at a lot of us, then I see that a lot of us just don't care about what you guys are thinking you are trying to do. We don't care about a lot of this, but some of us do. Some of us want to see change, but some of us don't. A lot of us turn to drugs and alcohol, just like a lot of every other people. But in such a short time, how are we going to make younger generations believe in what we are trying to do here? And even if we do take up our own laws, what's to stop the government and the corporations to step on us, to stop what we are doing? We're going to be branded as terrorists. They're going to stop us. They're going to use force, violence. How are we going to stop that? Even if we do make our own laws, what's to stop people from taking money out of people's hands, putting it into their own? I think we need a lot of what I hear here. What we need is full-on revolution. But a lot of people just don't seem to care, from what I see and hear. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lina. I'm a little bit concerned, like our what's his name down there, down the road, saying what this is going to do. If we have to vote on it, we've got, I don't know how many. I'll speak for off-reserve people, because a lot of our off-reserve people are not here to speak for themselves. I've got grandchildren that are out there, How can I have a family meeting like you guys got? You know, you live close together. My family's spread out all the way to England, you know, Toronto, all over the place. How can I have a family meeting like that? And like Elmer says, we're already on Turtle Island. There's nothing they can do to make me any different. I'm still going to be in Anishinaabe. I'm not ruled by Inyanak. I rule myself as a native person. All Inyanak just tells me, you got tax exempt, you got this and this and that. That's the only damn thing you get out in Inyanak. They're cutting our school funding already. Kids are having to go on OSAP and everything else to get funding. They get funding, they give them $1,100 to go to university. Out of that, they got to pay $600 for rent. What do those poor kids have to live on? They're in the city. You know, I live out there, living out in the city. It costs money to live out there. Here we still, people that have don't have cars, got to pay $30 to go for groceries. You know, it's kind of scary. Yes, it would be nice if we understood it, but a lot of us don't. And I'm sorry you that worked on it for 7 years feel that we should vote on it. I don't want to vote. I'm scared. And I speak for my grandkids and their grandkids. I'm not going to be around here when this takes place. I heard my grandparents talk about this. That was over 100 years ago. We're still here. We're still walking here. And we lived by the land back then. There was no government telling us what we had to do, where we were going to hunt. Yes, Shagnasha law says we can't hunt. I still see our own people going hunt. Go and fill up their freezers. You don't see them sharing anymore. We used to share before. I remember coming out when there was the most being killed that you went and got a chunk. We didn't have much. The same with the rabbit and fish. We were all given that. We were shared, everything we shared. We were a community. How many of you guys go visiting each other's home unless you got some people stuff to go? I lived across from my sister for almost 18 years. You think we went across only when there was party? It's not like it used to be. We've turned white manish right on our own community. And it's really sad I have to say this. But I'm proud to be a Anishinaabe and I'm scared. I'm scared for my grandchildren. Miigwech.
Good evening. My name is Abraham Michiano. When I first read this document, and I was talking to a few people that are in here and out in the community about it, and one of the things that always came up was the lack of understanding, the lack of dialogue. You know, the next thing we're voting, it's coming up on September 26th. This scares me when I read it, as it is written. There is too much room in here for greed. There's too much room in here for one chief and council to sit, as a gentleman pointed out earlier, for 20, 25 years. I've always was under the belief that each chief and council or each elected member who is going to represent citizens of our community and anywhere else should only sit for 2 terms. Then you got to move on and allow other people. Where are our youth today? I don't see any youth in here. I see a lot of older people. And half of us, I think, come out for the Chinese food, not the Constitution. And I'm just being blunt. And that's my reality. I spoke to my mom this afternoon before I came here. And some of you know her, she's an elder. And she's lived off reserve all her life pretty well. And she has questions also. What about my rights? Was her first question. What about my grandchildren? And what about their grandchildren? I don't think putting this off for a couple of more years or a year till everyone could understand it better is a rejection. As the elder had said, be careful, be careful, be careful. Well, let's follow the elder's advice. Let's be careful. Let's wait beyond September 26th before we put this into a ratification vote. You've done it for 7 years. I don't think a couple of more months or a year is going to hurt. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. If we are speaking from the heart, as most elders tell me they are, and if you're honestly going to sit up here or come up here and say you care about your community, you care about your youth, your grandchildren, and all that other stuff, then 1 or 2 more years is not going to hurt anybody. It's going to be more beneficial. That's what I believe. I think it is a powerful paper. It has potential. But it has potential to be very, very catastrophic also, if it's not done right. If we rush this through, watch out for Harper. Watch out for Mulcair. Watch out for Trudeau. Because they all speak with a forked tongue. And I guarantee you that all. There's no government in this land that really gives 2 hoots about what we're doing here and what Nishnabek are doing. They've been trying to get rid of us for how many years? And what all of a sudden makes you think they care about us and what they're going to do for us? So it don't matter who becomes the next prime minister, who takes over Ottawa here coming up in their election. They all have forked tongues. Be very, very careful, because it's our resources, it's our land, and they want that. That's all they want. It's money. Money and power. And if we don't stop it, and we don't take charge of our own, the right way, the careful way, careful, as Mr. Crochet had said, be very, very careful. Be rich.
Sorry, I just want to jump in for a moment. I just want to address some of the comments about I think what this Constitution can become. Corruption and greed is going to occur under any system that's out there. We see the scandals that happens with the Harper government. You see scandals across the country where chiefs are making close to $1 million on payroll. Misappropriation of funds through administration. Constitutions and laws are half the battle. The other half are the people you have. And I just want to recognize the leadership that we've had in this community in past and in present, and their ability to make sound decisions and lead and put the community in a position, its current position, that's quite healthy, that's made the right decisions to move forward. So part of this goes along with your annual elections that you have every 2 years about the leadership that you put in place to make these decisions for you. But their hands are bound by the current system, the Indian Act. Corruption occurs within the Indian Act where chiefs make $1 million because they're allowed to have that happen. That happens when people aren't involved in the discussion, they're not informed, and they don't show up to community meetings. I'm new to the file, new to the department, but there's been over 35 open consultations like this to talk about this paper. And we could give away TVs, we could give away Chinese food, but if people are going to show up for that, I don't think that's the right reasons for why you should be showing up. If there's one thing that this process is good about, is it's bringing this community together and the discussions that are happening. And what I encourage all of you to do, as I do in all the meetings that I attend, is to go back and have the conversations with the people that aren't here and say, hey, you need to get involved, you need to pay attention, you need to understand what's going on and what's happening here. But you talk about the 2-year term of an election of a chief and council. Every other municipality that exists in the Northern Hemisphere or North America, is a 4-year term. Is 2 years enough for people to really, for leadership to get a chance to really make impact and evolve? It's always going to be 2 years because the Indian Act always says it's 2 years. Matrimonial real property is going to come down the pipeline. It's already in the works at Indian Affairs. And the law will be imposed upon us through the Indian Act if we don't take the opportunity to seize what's out there. So I just want to, kind of caution some of the hesitation that's out here, because the people still determine the course of the action in the community. Whether it's ratifying on a law that is proposed to be involved, or whether it's electing the guys that sit up here beside me, who I think do a pretty darn good job in leading the community thus far. But I say that corruption and greed will occur under any system, any regime. There's always loopholes. That's what people try to do. They try to find those loopholes. But I think that what I see here is a group of people, leadership, people that aren't even on council or involved in the community. But there's leaders in this community that are willing and wanting to step forward. And this is an opportunity, it's an enabling document to do so. And so I'll stop there. But the other half to this equation is your continual elections of the leadership that you have and empowering them to help guide the decision for the community moving forward.
Good evening. I spoke at the last session, and I kind of want to touch base on that again tonight and just remind people this isn't the first time that council has created laws. And I know this because I've been on council. And my caution and my concern comes from the ability to enforce those laws. And I speak of primarily the biggest one that ever has affected this community is the control of the animal population. A simple dog bylaw just cannot get enforced in this community. Yet we sit here talking about governance, talking about creation of a ratification of a document that will empower council to create these laws. Well, as a citizen, as a former council member, we've batted zero for how many, what was there, about 100 dogs on this reserve? On that one law. I think back to 8 years ago when I was first elected to council. Council was approached with a document. It was a fire bylaw aimed at controlling the burning of garbage in the community. So it was the sole reason. It was prepared by 3 gentlemen with over 200 years, 200 years of them. Law enforcement, fire protection experience behind them. Council passed it. It was a great, great thing. The next council meeting, council repealed it. The council meeting after that, council voted it back in. And then we decided when it was repealed the second time, we won't ever talk about this again. So my concern becomes that the meat and potatoes of this document isn't strong enough for me to sign yes, to check off yes, to grant council that authority for a broad spectrum of control over my life. You read it, like, why should council have the power to determine laws on marriage, residency? You know, Joe, you touched on the fire department earlier and the successes that we've had. Own source revenue only accounts for half of the success of that program. The other half comes from the people that show up every Tuesday night. Of those 15 people that I have on there are members that are not even native. There are members that are not even members of this community. They're not a band member, but they live here. They have family here. And looking at things such as residency in the community scares me. It really does. To read that, should a law become, should the Court of Canada find a fault with the law that council produces, you'll simply just cut that portion out, the rest of the law remains the same. Why not repeal the law until you can correct it? You know, so I've seen council, because I've sat at that table, I've seen council try to create law already. And that, the dog one in particular, has nothing to do with the Indian Act. We know that. It's a procedural issue between the courts and the First Nation that we share with municipalities. Town of Marathon has the exact same issue, but they have the financial capabilities to hire somebody to manage that issue. So, asking the people of this community to sit back and ratify this document to give you control when the lawmaking history, to me, has shown to be very, very weak. That's what bugs me.
I'd like to answer that question. This Constitution doesn't give us the right to make laws, start off with. You've got the right to make the laws, to tell council how to make law, to make law and put it in the Constitution and run that. It's not us going to be making laws. It's going to be the people. It's same as we're doing, trying to ratify a constitution. The law is going to come up the same way. It's got to be ratified by the community before it becomes law. And it's only democratic to do that. And I can't see anywhere where council will have the power to overrun people if you run under this constitution. As a matter of fact, the people will have more power to control the council and how they're going to rule the community, because they will have laws and election codes and all kinds of laws they have to follow to run on. It's not them making laws and saying we should run this way. I know you're talking about bylaws. We used to make dog bylaws. It's because the court system don't recognize those laws. It's simple as that. But if you had a constitution where you have a law that's run underneath a constitution, all courts recognize that. And as long as it's covered by a constitution saying, yes, that's a law that they run by, we have to recognize that law and we have to prosecute on that. And I'm pretty sure that's how the Canadian government would run that, so is the provincial government. We can't just set up a law as a council with this constitution in there. We can't do it. There's no way. Because if we do, you can kick us out of there right away. If it was under the constitution. So when you see your council not doing right, they can be impeached. You prove that they did wrong, you're out of there. You know, put an impeachment process in your elections and your laws you make on how a council should run. Because there will be laws there that we're not going to run rampant and start making laws up and doing this. This should be right. We got to come to the people. That's the only way this is going to work. It's got to be the people sanctioning what we're doing. We can't just go in as a council saying we got to do it this way. It's got to be the people, and the people only will ratify on how we make laws here. And that's what this is all about. It gives us a permission to go and say, okay, people, we can now start working on making laws. Here it is. Talk about it. Let's do it. Ratify it. Give us feedback like we're doing tonight, and we'll do it, and then, some of those laws may take a couple of years to make. You know, it's not going to be done overnight. None of the stuff's going to be done overnight. Like you say, a lot of people say, I might not even see the end of this being fully built to full capacity of what we can do with this thing, you know. There's all kinds of things, and the beauty of it all is it's going to be our people that's going to be making the decisions on how they're going to run their community and their future. And I think that's the key thing here. Not worry about who's going to take over, who's going to run this, who's going to, you know, that's thinking way beyond. Somewhere, I would say I would be behind a black wall somewhere. I'm not thinking right. You know, you got to be reasonable into what you think the people could do. The people can do this. That's who's going to do this work, not the council. That's all I'd like to say about this. Thank you.
Bonjour. The English station cars do. Oh.
We're not known as Indian people. We're known as Anishinaabe people or Aboriginal, because they even hear our own people call themselves Indian. We're not Indians. Just because this short man came from across the ocean, Christopher Columbus came here in 1492, and he thought he was in India. No offense with the people, okay? That's all I want to say.
You know, I sit here and I'm swayed. I hear these guys talk. I'm swayed to them. I hear people on this side talk. I'm swayed to them. I'm really confused. You know, I truly am confused. Acknowledgement for the growth within our community, because as Anishinaabe people, we've grown so much over the past 40 years. And it's always an honor to say that I'm from this community. Growing up, I've seen a lot of positive change within our community. You know, the Constitution that they're trying to implement. I grew up with this guy, and I heard him talk about a lot of stuff at the supper table. I heard my mom talk about the dysfunctions within our community. And it's frustrating. I heard our young friend talk about where the youth are. I heard our elder mention about the teachings. You know, I heard Lina speak about giving. And a lot of that, to me, we've gotten away from as people. You don't see that anymore. I've probably knocked on everybody's door at some point in my life to offer something, whether it be fish, whether it be meat, because that's my belief. I believe strongly in the ways of the drum and in the ways of our culture. But you know what? There's no drum here. There's no, we have a community staff. It's not here. We're talking about a constitution that's going to govern us. We're talking about some of the teachings in our ways that we're supposed to live. But where is it? It's not here. It's not evident. There's nothing here for us to fall back on within our trueness of who we are as people. And Elmer said it's supposed to work with a family. It's supposed to work if we're together. Well, a lot of us ain't together, and I hate to say that, but we're lost in a lot of our ways. And I think we have to kind of figure that part out before we can move on into having something that governs us. Because we don't even understand ourselves a lot of times. Our kids are lost. Even my own children, I ask them, what Creator is. I ask them what the teachings are. And sometimes they can't answer that question. And I thought that as a person I was teaching that. I really respect our council for taking this position to try to better, I guess, the community and the ability to make laws. But our laws are written within the 7 teachings. And that's the government that we've had. And it's evident. I heard about those stories of the wampum belts of the Six Nation people, where those laws were written years ago. And I thought it was just through the culture of the Six Nations. But I talked to an elder in Armstrong, and he remembers as a child looking at the wampum belts, the original scribes of our people. And that's our law. And nothing will steer us wrong as people if we follow those laws. And to me, it's a simple thing. But I think as people, sometimes we make it too hard. We think too much about things. Our ways are simple. And if we follow those simplicity within those ways, nothing will steer us wrong. I know I get stuck. I work within an act, a law. It's a challenge. I've worked within it for 16 years, and it's almost taken my simplicity away from me. So I really caution our choices in what we're doing. If we're questioning the reality of this thing going through, simple. There's a yes and there's a no. For me, I think I'm going to be checking no because I really don't understand. And I'm going to be talking to other people just to make sure if they don't understand, then let them say no. You know what? We can kick at this can in another year. If you don't agree with it, you have the power to check and say no. Miigwech.
Well, I don't have to say who I am. You hear me? You all know who I am, Sally. I agree with Donald here. I don't understand what's this all about. And I don't even understand why 17. Why is the chief and council going to have that law with my traditions and practices? I used to come to band meetings long time ago. That's when Camille, Navigan, Toussaint Michano, they were chiefs already. And they were already fighting for land claim and water. That's all that the meeting was always all about. And today it's still. Our land, our Zebik. Ishinato Nawa, them people that are like the mill, Marathon Mill, even Townside ruin our water. Where did they put their garbage? They have a little creek going down to the river. I just said Ishinato Nawa. Long time ago, I don't know. I guess I was 10 years old. Already I knew that garbage was going down to the river. And the mill, I used to work in the mill, and I know where the dump was going. I used to ride that. I used to ride with that truck to go dump. And I said, what are you fighting for? Land that's no good, water that's no good. I heard of some young men hunting in Mobert, and my grandson is from Mobert. He come and told us what they kill a moose a couple of years ago, and when they opened it, it was all green inside. He was sick, that moose, already, because it was in Hemlo mine. That's where that moose was from. That's sickening. So when the young people kill moose, take a good look at it first before you start bringing the meat home, and that's why I went with my grandson and my sons out hunting. They called me out to show them how to gut it and what to take, and and how to bury it with your limbs, your trees, cover it nice. Don't spread it all over the place. You'll have a good hunt next year. That's what I told them. So that's what I wanted to say. I don't understand what this is all about. What do I have to vote for? Nobody ever came around my house. Oh, she don't know nothing. She don't know nothing because she's all alone. I got my oldest son living with me now. He came to live with me because I got sick. Nobody comes and help. Nobody comes to visit and tell me about what's going on in the community. I'm sorry, but I don't go anywhere. I'm at home. I'm at home if anybody wants to visit and explain to me what this is all about. And I agree with lots of them that don't understand what's going on. And that's what the teachers used to tell me when I was in grade 5, 6. That's what you're going to be. You're going to be a nothing. You're going to be a nobody, they told me. And that's what's happening. That's what people think. I'm a nobody now. I was told that a long time ago. It's stuck here. It was not only a residential school. It was our school here, public school here, that they did that to us. Did that to me when I was a little girl. Give me a strap with my dress. Kids are looking at me giving me a strap with my dress flying up in the air. Long Lac, I belong to Long Lac. The nuns done the same thing to me. I was treated the way residential school did. In Long Lac, the nuns were teaching us. I feel sorry for the people that went to school, residential school, and I know what they went through. And I went through the same thing as public school here in Long Lac. But why fight for land that's no good? Why fight for water that's no good? It's spoiled. Black River and Pick River. They're spoiled already. That's a long time ago I heard that. I try going to meetings, band meetings, and I hear same thing over and over every time I went to a band meeting. And now I don't even go to any open band meeting if there is an open band meeting. I listen to the one in the boardroom, but they're talking about the same thing all the time when they're on TV. But I want to thank you for listening to me. Okay? I'll make it.
Yeah. Bonnie wants, and then Louis, then you. Here.
Bonjour. Hoje que te piche coi de casa. Megese. O gitita coi. Mako. Dodem Pitigang Donji. You know, it was just over a week ago that that I learned those 4 phrases that I just addressed you with. And why is that? It is because part of it is because my father, at the age of 4 years old, was taken from his home and placed in a residential school. As a result of that, when he came back, because he was told, you cannot speak your language, and among many other atrocities that were thrown into the system there. But it was the federal government that dictated to him, that dictated to our people, you are not going to live with your family. You are going to go and live in this school. And you're going to learn this language. You're not going to speak your own language. That's the reality of what happened to our people. Our elders spoke of sovereignty. And to me, what sovereignty means is those 4 phrases I just mentioned. That's a small step in me gaining that sovereignty back. He talked about even us inviting our elder here to come and speak to us. That was how our people operated way back, before we were told on how we had to operate. We went to the elders and we got advice from them. My understanding of the message that was spoken today from our elder was, take it slow. My understanding is, there's our document. That's a small start. That's not everything that's going to happen. He said, what he means is, take it slow. After we pass this document, if this document passes, then every time we want to pass something, we bring the community together and we talk about it. And we decide on it as a community. Not the chief and council that's elected. That's not who's going to make those decisions. It's the people, it's all of you that are here. That's who's going to make those decisions. And that's what we're forgetting when we're talking here. Somebody talked about individual rights. Well, now is the time to exercise those individual rights. Come out. There's been 35 sessions already. Come out and speak. And that's what the meaning of this gathering is here today. We all have that opportunity. Let's come out and exercise those rights as individuals. There was a few things that were, as people were talking, I wish I had a pen, I would have wrote them all down, that I wanted to say to try and help understand what this document is all about. I support this document. I'm gonna make it known here today that I support this document because it is a step in us reclaiming who we are as Aboriginal people. I'm a very, very proud Anishinaabe person. I wasn't when I was in high school. I was ashamed of who I was because I was made to be ashamed of who I was. Today I'm a different person. I go out and I sundance, I warrior dance, I participate in ceremonies. I'm trying to learn the language. I'm trying very hard to learn the language. That's all a part of what makes me strong and who I am. I've had struggles in my life. And because of what I've done in my life, I've battled those struggles. I'm here and this is who I am today. And I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of my children. I'm proud of my community. So, this is only the start. This is not everything. You're not giving the power to the chief and council to say, so-and-so, you, after 25 years, even though you paid rent in your house for 25 years, that's not your house. You're not giving them that power. It's us as a people that's going to make those decisions, and it's up to you to come out and do that. So, this is, yes, it is confusing, and we do have to take our time. But you know what? This is a step in that direction. How miigwech.
There's been a lot of great points made this evening, and I don't even know if I can even elaborate on what the heck I've been thinking all evening here. But one of the good things about this document so far is it had brought everybody out here, or at least a good majority of us out here, to come and speak on it. And sitting on council for a while back, anyways, I was on council for a few terms. We were wondering, how the heck do we get people interested in what the decision-making process is? How do we get them out? This is one good positive thing that came of it. However, that being said, I still have to give pause to it as well, because in my mind, like, from a legal perspective, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but you know, like, there's other things out there that have been spoken about, like the matrimonial real property law and stuff like that. How is that going to poke holes in that, and how is that going to affect how this reserve is divided and subdivided up in the future? And yeah, I guess not too much more I can say about that, I guess. But that was that's one of my big concerns, is how are we protected legally within that document later on, once we start developing things. Like I guess I want to be reassured before I even vote on this document, like, if we're protected. Like I would like somebody to really explain to me in detail legally what our protections are in there. Like, I'm sure because it's been developed by you guys over 6 years and you've had lawyers and stuff like that. But as a member, I don't know that. Nobody's really fully explained to me what the protections are in this document. How is it that I'm protected, my children are protected in the future? I've got a house up there. I've spent a lot of time and energy into putting that up there. Like, how do I know that that's my kids are going to be able to say what happens over there, or who's next door to them, what's happening right next door? You know what I mean? There could be a garbage dump pop up there. I don't know. But even given some of that, like, this is a good step in the right direction. I think we're moving forward with that, and we have to take it to the government, and we have to say this is our traditional territory, and we have to, you know, have some things written. But it's I agree with like Donald said earlier as well. Like, it's both ways. I can go both ways on this, but right now, without fully understanding what the long-term ramifications are with this, I'm really undecided as of yet, and I don't think I will be ready by that date until I further know what's going on. And you know, what are you guys pointing at? You didn't even let me finish. Thank you.
Good evening there, people. Don't mind me, I'm fighting off a cramp here. Like, there's a lot of confusion going on right now. I'm going to tell you, I even think there's confusion on our table. They might not like that, but that's what I believe. This Constitution is to write laws for us, our membership. I understand what they're saying about the land on page 5, our land claim and all that. But my concern is on one little piece of dot, a place that we call home. And they're going to make laws on membership. And you might not like what I'm going to say. We have laws, actually we don't have laws, we may write laws. I'm going to look at interracial marriages. A Native woman marries a white man. If you don't mind me using, what happens if that Native woman passes to that white man who's a community member here? Their children, they're now 50% Native. If they had another interracial marriage that's 25%, who's going to have the right, the law, to say they're Native? And my dad put me in my place today. It's an inherent right, which is true, 100%. I believe my dad on that. But who's going to give the law to say he's wrong? We're giving people the power to say that my dad is wrong. You know? And if those people are 10% native, this is our own members. Are they entitled to 100% native funded? You know, we should be writing maybe laws now to give the membership at peace at this before we move forward. Let us feel at peace as a member of this community on this piece of land we call home before you go and represent us out there. You know, because I'm not sure what's happening here. A lot of people obviously aren't sure what's happening here. Let's settle our questions at home with this piece of paper that you're proposing. Then let's take it out to the rural. And you say on September 28th, we're going to be under the Indian Act if we say no. We got a land claim going. We're not under anything. Today, we're all members of Pick River First Nation, Heron Bay, and members. And on September 28th, we're still going to be the same. You know, let's get this right, then move forward. Let's let everybody feel comfortable 100% and support it, but let's rewrite it where we're all happy. That's all I got to say right now. Thank you. And I'm fighting off that crap.
This won't take long because I can't stand very long. When I first came in the door, I said, well, I'm going to vote for this. And then I hear people talk on this side, our community members on this side, I'm not going to vote now. Then I hear on this side, I'm going to vote. And then I hear back here, oh my God, I'm all twisted. And you know what? I think I heard somebody say here tonight, bring in those lawyers to talk to us all here so we can ask those questions that we need to ask before we vote to say yes to this. Because I am torn. Right now, I believe this is going to be good for us in the right way. But right now we're walking fear of the unknown. Take a look at this table. There's nothing on there. If we want to build something on there, we don't have no tools to build on there. We have to put something on there to start building the right way. Our elder talked about the 7 traditions: truth, wisdom, honor. Are we vote yes for this? And one of our council members said, we'll change it after. Is that the truth? Can we change it after? Can we make new laws after this thing is passed? If you could stand up, our councillors could stand up right now and say, you pass this and we'll change it. We could change it. It's not built in cement. I say, well, we'll pass it then. We'll start it. We'll start a building. We can start building. And like Louis said, we don't know. Yes, our 7 teachings do come in practice here, and especially the truth. Are we going to be able to change? Thank you.
I think the main thing for me that's really confusing is I do think that this document is a good starting point, and I think taking it slow and working with it and engaging the community more would be really great, and to get their input. And tonight you got a lot of input. for this document. But the big thing that's I've heard from council members is that you aren't the ones that are going to be making these decisions. It's going to be the community. It's going to be the membership. But if you look at the document itself, under jurisdiction and authority, the only 2 points in there state word for word that chief and council are the decision makers. It doesn't say anything in there about membership. And then you look at the ratification process, and it says 51% of someone who shows up. So if you have 3 people that show up to a meeting and 2 out of 3 people say yeah, does that qualify for a voting process? So it doesn't state how many members need to be involved or there's no clarification in the document. And I think for me that's confusing, because to stand up and say we aren't the decision makers, but yet to put it in the paper that you are. So where is the clarification on that? Maybe there should be something written in here that membership will be involved, that you need so many voters for each law, and not just stating chief and council may pass any law for the betterment of our citizens, and that chief and council can decide when the laws are going to be created and when to hold those meetings. And so should there be something in there that states how long you should advertise a meeting for before you vote on a decision, before you vote on a law? And for me, and I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but for me that's where it gets really confusing, because I can't just say yes to something knowing that you're just going to decide regardless. You're going to sit at that table and say, yeah, okay, let's do this, and the law's passed without anyone knowing. So that's, for me, that's where it gets confusing, and that's where I'm hesitant to vote. So maybe if there's something in there, maybe if there's more wording, more clarification, then we could start moving forward and start putting the membership, their concerns into this document. And yes, there has been, they said 35 meetings. Has there been 35 meetings regarding this document? Or has it been from the beginning when it was just about the development of a constitution? And has it always just been about this document? Because I can only think of maybe 7 or 8 sessions where it's been about this document. And that's only been in the recent time. So that's just, I just wanted to say that that's where I think a lot of the confusion is, and that's my input on the document. Thanks for listening.
Dina wanted asked for a response to her question. Just to make sure we have it right, the question is the ratification process, whether theoretically 3 people can vote and it pass. Has the power, right, yeah. Right. And I think that if I could speak to that, and it's a very good question because it comes up, and I think what we're missing is the interpretation of what's sitting there. And it happens with every legal document that's out there. What's written is written. It's why our elders said you have to be very careful. One word can really change things, and he's right. And from my time on the committee and the questions we've had on that, I've seen council say that that was exactly their concern, that the power cannot reside with chief and council to do what they want to do. And that's the ratification process and the amendment and the repeal process, that this is really a living, breathing document. And to Clyde's comment that yes, it can be changed. And it's, but at the end of the day, I guess what, not to skirt the question, but to the folks that say this is a beginning, it is a beginning. And we need to have something that we can continue to work with and play with and mold as our own, as individuals, when they come out and they have these times to speak and be involved. And that's what this document is meant to be. It's meant to be malleable. It's meant to be transformative and change with the people as the people so desire. Now, does it explicitly say that as well as it should? Obviously not, because the membership is coming back tonight saying it doesn't. So, but I can assure you that when the folks met with the lawyers said, yes, this is exactly what it means. And that's what the amendment and the repeal thing says. Now, there's two things that could happen. You can go to vote September 26th, yes or no. Either it gets shot down or it gets passed. Theoretically, if it is to get passed, you can always go back to the drawing board. Everything's always open for discussion with the direction you provide to your chief and council to say, these are the issues we want to talk about, this is what we want to do. That decision ultimately lies with chief and council as to whether they want this to continue to go to vote or not. They'll have to convene after tonight with the feedback they have and make that decision. I can't say one way or the other here moving forward. What I can speak to is that we really need to get down. It's almost like we need to consult about the way to consult, because we've had talked about 30, 35 meetings, and the attendance of the ones I've attended hasn't been as good as it's been tonight. Now we offer Chinese food dinner. That's always good. Do we give out TVs? I'm a big supporter that we don't give out TVs. We don't give out prizes because, pardon me? Yeah, 51-inch TV. No. I'm not saying that. Yeah. And I'm not saying that, but there are a lot more people out tonight, and I don't think it's the Chinese food dinner, to be honest. I think what it is there's nothing like a deadline to get people talking and say, I got to get out and I got to understand this before we move forward. And I think that election date is really, getting people motivated and talking and having the discussion. But what I can stress and what I can advocate for is, as Louis said, people are out, people are talking. When these sessions are out there, we need as many people as possible to get out and inform the decision, because at the end of the day, chief and council have to just take what they have. They have to say, we've met with folks, and they have to move forward. We have to take that step forward at some point. Now, is tonight an indicator that more time is needed? Again, chief and council to decide, and they could talk about it, but absolutely, that's a question that I'm sure they'll consider, Dave, that you proposed. So we need clarity on that piece. That needs to be spelled out more clear. The time that's required for consultation, that's clearly got to be spelled out. We've got a ton of stuff at Lands and Resources that we had planned to have meetings on like this, and we need to have a clear system and a process, but it's got to be reasonable, and people got to show up when we hold them, and they got to have their input. And if we don't get the attendance, at some point you got to move forward with a decision, because the projects aren't going to stop. The government's not going to stop. They're going to continue to move forward. So we got to get on that train, and this is healthy. This is a really good thing for the community. Sorry.
Our laws. Supposedly the exact would be like, okay, so we're gonna make a law about education, and now we're losing our right to education with the funding and stuff like that. And we create a law that's in there to make our education come to a higher. Is the government going to be able to go beyond that and say,
So the question being, will the government recognize essentially what it is that we decide to pass? You can say this, that chief or councillors can write letters, and it's one individual. They can pass a BCR. It's a select group of individuals that have been elected. If you have something that's ratified through a community vote in a constitution, That's a very strong message. That's the voice of every individual behind what the request is or what the assertion is. With that, if you're able to demonstrate that you have the competent resources to manage whatever it may be. So let's just say Pick River decides they want to have their own mining act to say this is how mining will develop and this is how the resources will be shared and split among us, and not that part of the mining act that's provincially mandated. They could say, we're going to recognize what's here, but you also need to do this. That then can go to a court, and the courts would rule and say, ultimately, whether this falls yea or nay. Historically, when First Nations around the world assert their authority through a constitution, they typically it's ruled in their favor because it goes back to the fact that we have no relationship with the province. We have no relationship with the Crown of Canada. We were not a conquered people. Therefore, we have our individual rights, and that's what we have as a nation. What this is doing is it's saying, okay, this is how we agree as people about what those rights mean, and this is our interpretation of those. Because the classic government corporate strategy is to divide and conquer. They would love to be sitting in this room tonight and see that we are not 100% behind each other, because they drive wedges in those little pieces, and then you get torn apart. In the meantime, they move forward, and we sit back, scattered or disjunct with each other, and we lose our seat at the table. Sally talked about Hemelo Mines. That's why we weren't at the table. The Marathon Harbor stuff, all that stuff, it's because we weren't at the table, because maybe we didn't have the people, maybe we didn't have the resources. But we did what we could at that time, and that's what we're doing now. Doing what we possibly can and take that step in the next direction. But again, it's to each individual. Yeah.
I didn't want to wait, but we were at the table with Emlo. Elmer, Ed, and I were there. And watch and be careful. This Chinakanegan document will not be defeated at Pick River. 80% of this document was done by the Union of Ontario Unions that was 42, but many dropped out. There's only 39. And Arnold mentioned it, that Art and I were down there when they voted on this document. And at that time, I explained how Cindy wanted really to have the education part embedded in this document because we were having a hard time with it. I'm glad that they're going to ask our chief to invite Pat Madabi down and the chiefs of Ontario down, because this document that we're talking about is going to be conquered at the Union of Ontario Union Assembly, because all of this is incorporated with all of our input, which I compliment the council for putting in. And yes, this is about time that we did this. But yes, we've got to look at the reluctance of people wanting more information. And that's so important to have that, because the civil rights of my child has got to be written in there. So, whether we vote on it there on the election day, whether it's yes or no, irrespective of it, this document will be ratified by 39 First Nations. Some of them are doing it this way, some of them are doing that way. Elmer said they've done it over there this way. And that's where this document is going to survive. And I believe it will survive, because every First Nation that I was sitting with always said, let's get the hell out of the Indian Act. And I proudly say I am an Indian Act chief, and I don't care what you say. We're going to go make progress with my council. My council. And we made progress with that Indian Act. So there are how many more acts that we got to look at? You know, and I feel that's important that we list those acts there, because those people, they're going to have a say. And us taking away all their responsibility of us poor Indians. And along with that, they're going to probably take their funding. And I worry about that. Then with Ontario, same thing. You know, the Ontario is funding many of our social services programs. Will they agree with us? And I know most of them, they're going to say, go to hell. That's why I voice my concern in opposition to this. But I believe that it is very clear that people want more time, as our elder has spoken to us. We need more time.
Okay, oh yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I'd like to thank the people who showed up and came and requested family meetings. I'd like to thank the 50 plus group, and there have been lots of meetings about this specific document. This document is about inherent right to sovereignty and self-government. This document is about being Anishinaabe and taking control of our own lives and the lives of our children. This is not something that's new. I've been here 25 years in this position, and I can count before that, sitting in this room. And for me, growing up in this community, the message has always been clear. We are sovereign. We can sit with Rocco and Camille and Clara and Antoine and listen to and remember their fights and their struggles. And always, that's what it's about. They were always against and always stood up for the rights of us and the rights of our generations and honoring our ancestors. Because if we take a look at this history in this country that they call Canada now, they call Canada. And we're getting really afraid because we're calling it Canada before we call it anything else. The goal of the Canadian federal government is to get rid of the Indians. Simple as that. It is simple as that. Let's look at our history. Let's take responsibility and learn our history and what that government has done to us and what they continue to do to us. They want to get rid of us. It's simple. Genocide. It's not assimilation. It's genocide. And sit with that. We are trusting a government that wants to kill us, period. We are more adept to believe in the white government, colonial government, than we are with ourselves. This is not about 10 people that we elect. It is not about 10 people, chief and council, holding the power. Is that really what our fear is? Our fear, I think, for us is that we have the power as an individual within this community, as individual rights and collective rights. And I think that fear sits in each of us. This document does not talk about any details. It was debated a long time. There were education pieces in here, ratification pieces, lots of information was in here. And it went down to its bare minimum to ensure that we sit here and look at this document. Does that sit well with us? We have other people we've seen who are our children. And according to the Canadian government, you are no longer Anishinaabe. You are no longer a Pick River Indian. Anishinaabe, Myra, sorry. Are we okay with that? Are we really okay giving the power to the federal government that wants to get rid of us? And that's what's going to happen. And once there's no more status Indians, according to Indian Affairs, lands and lands reserved for Indians will be reverted back to the federal government. So 1-2 generations from now, there is going to be no more Indians, and there'll be no more lands and lands reserved for the Indians. They want to get rid of us, simple as that. And we're okay sitting back and giving them that power with the history they've had. Let's look at another issue. Pick one. Pick one. Referendum and elections. Again, a non-native person can be our chief. Are you okay with that? Are we really okay that a white person can be our chief. Does that make sense? You know, let's take a look at child protection. A lot of our people have had so many horrible experiences with that. And yes, we have Delico, we have Tikanagan, we have all these agencies that are ours, but are they really ours? They're not ours. They are, again, the provincial government, and I don't even want to get into the provincial federal issue, let's push that aside. But they are controlling what happens to our children again. Look at residential school. They took our kids. They removed them from our families. They removed them from our land. They removed them from their customs, from our language. We still feel the impacts of residential school. We have more kids in care today than what we had in friggin' residential school. Let's sit with that. We can't even determine how we're going to protect our children. We got no say. Oh, let's have meetings. Let's do this. Let's do that. We got no friggin' say in how we keep our children at home and keep them safe. It's their laws again. So the list can go on and on and on and on. Education. If we, Pick River, followed what we're supposed to in those friggin' contribution agreements, we're going to teach provincial curriculums. We grew up in teepees. Oh, the kids went to residential school and some of them had a hard time and it was really sore. Read your kids our history books. Well, you probably don't have them because we took them away. We're not supposed to. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to follow provincial curriculum. We're not even teaching our kids our own history. And so we can go on and on and on about what's happening here. Matrimonial real property. Let's look at that's another one. That is about the division of assets in the First Nations. They're pushing it out there, making it look like an issue of equality between males and females in divorce. It looks nice and wonderful. But pull it out. Pull the onion skin back. What's there? Matrimonial real property. Sit with this. For the first time in our history, a non-native person can own the lands on the reserve. First time, and that's coming out of matrimonial real property. Are we okay with that? Our little 800 acres, are we okay in the event of a divorce that those lands will be reverted and given to a non-band member? Are we okay with that? So if you can see, again, it's disposition and removal of us from our lands, disposition and removal of our children from our homes, disposition and removal of children from every aspect of our lives, and we're okay with the federal government saying, yes, that's better, give that power to them. Don't give it to us. And I'm not saying me as band manager or chief and council, as a band member. And you know what? If we have a vote and only 3 people show up, we friggin' deserve it. We deserve what we get. Because it's not about 10 people up here. It's about every single one of us standing up. Yes, we're afraid. But you know what? I'm more afraid not to do anything because look what they're doing. Look what they've done. Look what they've done. We could just look in our backyard and see our children. Our grandparents were gone. Everything. That is what they're doing. Their laws are powerful. And we don't have nothing to stand on. We can't fight them. We have nothing. Absolutely nothing to go and fight them on. And this whole, I'm not going to say that this isn't scary, but the other side of it is even more scarier. When this comes to implementation, that's going to be the first piece that we as a community need to take a look at. How are we going to make decisions? How are we going to ratify stuff? The Lands Department is already looking at that. How is decisions made in this community? And that's where, once this constitution's passed, that we can come back and sit together, and it's our responsibility to show up. We got to show up. We got to show up, and we can't show up at the last minute. So this Constitution gives you the power, you, me, as band members, as members of Bitugong Nishnabé. We have the power, but more importantly, we have the responsibility here to stand up and to fight against the federal government and to give, yes, to give our chief and council power. We're giving them power. And what is wrong with giving them power? Because that is our elected governance system. You know, maybe we don't like 10 people, 11 people. This is going to give us the power to sit as a community and say, how do we make elections? Do you really think with our history, that you're going to allow a group of 10 people to do whatever the hell they want? I don't think so. This community is strong. This community is empowered. This community sets down expectations for us, all of us. And if we take a look at our history as a community and our growth, there has been nothing major done here without the community involvement. Do we have 100% consensus all the time? No. We've tackled big issues in this community over all of these years, and we've tackled them together. And the successes we feel today, and I'm not saying that we're perfect, but we've done lots of good things, and there's lots of room for improvement, but this has not been done without community. We got a strong community, and this council and the councils before that know our people are strong, know our people have a voice. We don't have meek people sitting around here. And I don't think in our history, that if we voted on something, that we're so out of it that only 3 of us show up. If 3 of us only show up to vote, then you know what? We deserve what the hell we get. We deserve it. Because that is our responsibility to come here, put down our stuff, and say, here's how we're going to do stuff together. This is not about us and them and all of that. This truly is about community. This truly is about family. This truly is coming together as a collective and finding common ground and say to each other, we want to do well. How do we find that common ground? So, you know, it's at a critical time, and a lot of people don't understand the details. And a lot of people, and I don't care how many education goes on, we're never going to quite understand the concepts of constitutions. Take a look at the Canadian government constitution, the American constitution. It's less than this. You know, I just think that we really should look back, and even though we're afraid, what is the alternative? And once this Constitution is passed, if it gets passed, we will come together again, and then we will say, how are we going to make laws together? How will we ratify? What does consultation look like? What is the responsibility of the technicians? What's the responsibility of the staff? What's the responsibility of council? But more importantly, what's the responsibility of us as band members sitting together here? We together have to decide that. That's going to be the first step after the Constitution. How are we going to pass laws? And so we can't put this in there. Constitution is not the place to hold those. Go and look at any other constitutions of the world. Those details do not belong inside a constitution. Those details belong in separate laws on the side. You know, we talked about the dog bylaw was mentioned. You know what? The Indian Act does say we can make laws. Let's go take a look at the Indian Act. The Indian Act says, as First Nation people of Canada, you could make laws about dogs. You could make laws about weeds. You could make laws about grass. That's what the Indian Act gives us power to do right now. We see in our dog bylaw, the courts will not touch Indian affairs law. So we, fine and dandy to put it up there, the courts are not going to touch Indian affairs law. We get our constitution in, then we could look at what are those institutions we have. We can now go to the crown attorneys in the courts and say, here is our constitution. We want to establish ways to enact our laws. Right now, they're not touching it. We don't even stand a chance. Over dogs, we got authority to decisions about our dogs. Woohoo! Do we have authority to make decisions about citizenship, about membership, about elections, about our child? We got no rights. We got no rights to do that. But boy, oh boy, we can make dog decisions. So that's Indian Act. I think if you take a look at constitution development across Anishinaabe country, across Canada, all of our communities are they are afraid. They are afraid, and we should be afraid. And if we don't really stop and look at the alternatives, we're going to be in worse shape. There is going to be no more Indians. There is going to be no more lands and lands reserved for Indians. And more importantly, I think what's really important, I go back to two stories all the time. One was with Alphonse, Angelique, my grandparents. We were out going for moose hunting. They pull over. Ruby shoots her moose. Rocco and Keemil and Ruby go off to get that moose. I'm staying in the car with Angelique. She tells me, Nojes. I said, what? She says, do you know why I'm sitting here? And I said, no. She tells me, I got a really important job. She says, you think your granny's got an important job shooting that moose? And of course I did. Well, 22. And then she says, my job is to enforce our laws. She says, we got our own laws here, and these laws didn't come from any government. These laws came from within. She goes, I'm sitting in this car, she tells me, because conservation officers are going to come here. OPP officers are going to come here. And that is my job, to defend the laws that existed in our people. I sit with that all the time, and she was just talking about hunting. But she wasn't just talking about hunting, she was talking about laws. We sat in this hall and listened to elders doing land claim research, talking about laws existed out in the bush. There were laws on how we lived in the land. There were laws when people came to visit. There were laws when friends came over to trap in our territory. There were land management laws. All of this stuff is in our memory yet. And we need to research. And Donald, I believe so strong, just as strong as you, that Anishinaabeness is our only saving grace. It is. It truly is. And this stuff has to be about Anishinaabeness. We're not Jeganashis. We are Anishinaabe. And this is going to give us, for the first time in our life, the ability to define who we are. To define who we are as Anishinaabe. And if we don't define who we are as Anishinaabe, they're going to define it. They're already defining it. They tell us who we can marry, who we can't marry, who can live on reserve, who can't live on reserve, who could be chief, who can be a foster parent, who could be this and this and that. The list goes on. And so I hope that we acknowledge that we're afraid. Like everything else, we will acknowledge we could have done a better job. We could do a better job at many things. However, at this point, this is the best job that we've been able to do. And this document is not making us do anything other than standing up and saying, we trust ourselves, not these 10 people or 11 people. We trust ourselves to make decisions about what we're going to do with ourselves and our community. And I hope that even despite issues on process, issues on timing, issues that we could have done a better job with this, because that will always be the case, that come September 26, you have the responsibility and the right to vote yes or no. But you have to show up. We have to show up. And if we say yes, then we'll move forward and we'll have lots of conversations about, number one, how do we make laws first of all? And then look at those other issues. And if we say no and you're not sure and you mark no, then that's fine too. Because we can't throw this off the table. We cannot throw this off the table. So 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 4 years, will we all ever be comfortable with it? I don't know. The comfort is going to come when we come back together and say, how are we going to make these laws? How do we want our elected leadership to help us make laws? And then the comfort is going to come in, and we put that on the table and say, this is what it means to be Bitagong Anishinaabe member. This is what it means to be resident. This is what this means. And we have the power, and this is going to give us as a people more accountability. Our elected leadership is now accountable to us. Right now, they're accountable to Indian Affairs. They're accountable to Indian Affairs. And this will make them that. Anyway, so you have another month. And if you have more questions than that, they're available at the Lands Building. Other members of Chief and Council are open for you to come in. There's still an invite out there to have community meetings. There's a few family meetings. There's a few more opportunities for you to just drop in the office. So there's still a month to help us get a little bit better understanding. But will we ever reach the state where we're not confused? I don't think so, because it is complicated. It is confusing. And sometimes we're going to have to sit and lean on our experts, and we have Anishinaabe lawyers. They're not Jeganashe lawyers, they're Anishinaabe lawyers who've gone through this. So on September 26th. So anyway, I guess that's it. Niwe.
How the hell do I follow that? I can see that there's a lot of apprehension, a lot of mistrust, but I can guarantee you that as long as I'm living, there won't be an opportunity for a chief and a council to say they're going to extend their term for life. I want to say that right away. I also want to bring your attention to a paper that was written in 1960 by the Christian government. Arnold, Artie, Herbie, Elmer, Roy will remember it. It was called the White Paper that the Christian government put in place. Christian was at that time Minister of Indian Affairs. And basically, that White Paper at that time was attempting to do exactly what Joanne was saying. Was attempting to make all the Anishinaabe white people. That's what that was trying to do. That's exactly what the Conservative government is trying to do now. But they're doing it incrementally because these bastards are sneaky. And bit by bit, legislation by legislation, they're doing it. There's some communities that are entirely over. They're just like municipalities. And the conservatives and the right-wing political parties in this country are not going to be satisfied until there's no Indian problem. They want us all to be like Jaganashok. They want us all to be like municipalities. When you toe the line, when you raise taxes, you tax your people. And that's how things are going to go. If we stay with the Indian Act and believe what governments like the conservative governments are trying to do to us. I believe this paper actually doesn't take power from the people. I believe it gives power to the people. It empowers people to make their own laws now. Council will not be able to pass a law without it first being ratified by the people. We work together to develop a law, whether it be through a committee, whether it be through a committee and council. We develop a law. and we put it to the people, and the people say yes or no. It's simple as that. Donald mentioned here you have the power to say no. And that's how it will be. When a law is developed, you have the power to say no. And if there's some chief and council sometime in the future who attempts to put themselves in power for life or for 20 years or 30 years, you hang the bastards. It's simple as that. And I won't be there, so you're probably not going to hang me. But anyways, I think, think long and hard about this. I know there's lots of confusion, but talk to the committee, talk to Aaron, and then talk to Joanne about how this is going to work in the future. Because I believe in my heart that this is going to empower you as people to start making your own decisions and taking away that power from the federal government through the Indian Act to rule your everyday lives, because that's what happens here. Everything that happens here, you think that chief and council are making decisions. We're making decisions within the Indian Act because the Indian Act only allows us to do certain things, or our bloody funding gets cut. With this, we have the power to make our own decisions and our own laws. Where are we going to start? I don't know. We've got a whole list here on section 16, I believe, of laws. And I think that the first discussion that has to take place, where do we start? What law do we first develop to make sure that this document works properly? In the coming days, I would encourage everybody to get together with their families. We're trying to talk to Aaron to get my family together. They wander all over the goddamn place just like gypsies, so it's hard to get everybody together on the weekend. But I think because there's questions even amongst my family, we want to know more about it, and I think that's what those family gatherings are for. So they're there to answer questions and about how this is going to work. So that the vote will probably take place on the 26th on election day, and basically that was chosen because that's the day when there's going to be most people who are out voting anyway. We're going to be able to capture most of the people who are voting. If we put it on some other day, we may just get the 3 people that Joanne talked about. So we're trying to put it on that day so we can capture as many people as we can. And if you vote no, well, then that's your prerogative. But I hope you'll vote yes, because there are a lot of good things that we can do within this document. And again, like I said, it empowers you as people to decide how your laws want to go. And if you don't like a law that's developed, you can vote no on it. And with that, I guess I'd like to congratulate the committee that's worked so long and hard on this, and Joanne and the lawyers. And I also want to congratulate everybody that showed up to those meetings, that showed up to all the little sessions that Aaron put together, and that showed up here tonight. Continue to question, continue to try to find out what this is all about, and maybe by the 26th you'll have a good idea where we want to go with this. Miigwech.
Okay, folks, I was optimistic in my agenda. I said I'd like us to wrap up by 8 p.m. We're creeping up on 10. Arnold and Herb just want to say something real quick, and I'll leave the last words with our elder to close us out for the night.
No, I just want to comment on the family sessions that we had, and we found out that it was very informative, and the families, they really understood how we explained it to them, and I'm glad I see some of them here tonight, and I'm sure they probably got confused, but I said don't get confused and stick to the original message that we gave you. Oh my gosh.
As it sits right now, we'll use what we use for the democratic process for the elections. So we'll minute till we. Well, they currently can't vote for chief and council because if they're on the ban list. Well, that's where you need to be able to build the law to say who's on reserve and off reserve band member. Not necessarily. You got to create that process in order to make it happen. Herb? Okay. We'll just let the elder close us off for the evening and maybe close us out with a prayer at the end.
Miigwech, I've been listening here, and it's good that we had this information meeting because those are the crucial parts that we need. Back home, what they do is we have a young man that's working on us. And he drafts out everything that's going to be discussed and what's taking place. So when it goes to the people, the people are aware of what the discussion is going to be and so forth. When I listened to Joanne just a while ago, that's what should have been given to the people to fully understand some of the things that you're talking about and how we got to the difficulties and the things that we face. Those are the things people need to know and to understand. Yes, I'm one that really believe that we have to make laws for ourselves. And I'll always believe that. Because if we don't make laws for us, then who's going to make laws? Our little ones won't have a chance. We have to start somewhere. But the explanation is the important part. The information that needs to be brought forth to the family so that we can make the proper understanding of what's going to take place. When I first looked at this myself, I was a little confused also of all the things that you want to do. But after listening to Joanne, it made sense. Now, this is what needs to be done. And it also she outlined the dangers that we face the way things are going. Those are the kind of things that people need to know, need to understand, to help them make the right decisions of moving forward. That's very important. Yes, you want to vote for next month, I believe. But I think you still have time to inform the people properly so that proper decisions can be made. Right now it's a little bit blank. Fill in the gaps as you explained this evening. I think it'll go a long ways. With that, I say miigwech. But before I leave, I thank you all. It's nice to be home. Even though it's only a few days, this Heron Bay has always been my home. It'll always be my home. I'm getting old, I might be coming home. Eh? Okay, just hold on.
How miigwech mangis and there's nakaz mangdo dem big to gong janjaba. How chumigwech vishomas shem nedo nokmas. Give Yudi sing to Namayang and to meet with each other and to help each other understand what the document is all about. Chinak Nagawan. We need to do a little bit more work before the vote. I pray that we all leave tonight with a good heart and a good memory about this meeting. Miigwech.
What's that?